have stencils in your craft stash? Are you getting the most out of them? I honestly think that stencils are one of the most versatile things in our crafty stash and our crafty arsenal. In fact, the blurb that I've written on the back of mine says that they're perfect for inking, blending, using with sprays and mediums, as well as doodling, and can be put through a standard die cutting machine for an embossing effect. Despite knowing all of this, nearly always, every time I get out a stencil to play with, I just put ink through it and just do very basic stuff with it. No more. Today we are going to take a deep dive into all the different things that you can do with your stencils. So let's give what we already have in our crafty stash a new lease of life by exploring some new techniques. Now, this video does cover a lot, from the basics to more advanced techniques, so the video will be time stamped if you want to jump to a particular technique. But without further ado, shall we just get started? So we are going to start this video with some basic ink blending. I think this is a technique that most of us are familiar with. I have got my distress inks here and a blending brush, and I'm just simply blending the ink through the stencil. The blending brush that I'm using is actually cheap makeup brushes from Amazon. If I remember, I will link them below. And also, I like to clean up my stencil onto paper. I quite often do this in an art journal page or something if I'm working on a specific project. But you get great effects, it's sort of like a nice reverse effect, and it also saves your ink, so it's well worth doing. Now, in our crafty stash, we maybe have different inks for different purposes. No matter what the ink, it can be popped through the stencil. So now I'm going to experiment a little bit with Versamark, and that's because it stays tacky. You can see that just behind my hands that there's a bit of a gloss, so you kind of get this almost like watermark effect. Now I'm first of all going to try this out using some mica powders. These are Pretty Gets Gritty mica powders, and mica powders really sort of shine, and you can see them to their full potential on black, hence why I've chosen black card to do that. So I've got a couple of different mica powders just so that we can see the effects there, and also there was the mop up on the other side, which gives a cool kind of distressed feel. Now I think most of us maybe are used to Versamark and embossing powder, so again we use the same technique, pop the ink through the stencil, and this time I am covering that all over with embossing powder. Now I don't know, are you like me? It was embossing. This embossing, look at that, it's just magic. There's something about watching the powder turn into gold that is just so exciting. I have to say that this technique here was the technique that drew me to craft, and yet I have never, until making this video, done it with a stencil. With stamps occasionally, but not with a stencil. And look how amazing that looks. That would make some amazing different backgrounds. So again, I've not done this with every single ink in my craft stash. I have a lot, but it's just experimenting a little bit to give you an idea of just how versatile even that basic technique is. So we're going to move on to doodling. In this instance, I just have a black biro here, and I'm literally using the stencil to draw through. Now I think most of us, you know, maybe when you're at school, I used to have a ruler with the alphabet on it and you would draw through it. This works in exactly the same way, and it's probably better quality than those rulers we had back in the day. So you can just doodle through it, and it creates a lovely black and white effect like so. I'm also going to sort of take that particular technique to the next level by drawing through on some designer paper and then paper piecing it in. So I have just kind of got some of my paper here, and yeah, this is the Sherbet Fizz, and I'm just cutting out little bits and pieces. So the fact that we've created a black outline, you could do this with any stencil. I am choosing to colour up some of the blank spaces with the actual paper, but you could also just use that almost like a colouring page as well, or like you do with your stamps when you stamp it out and then colour in using the various colouring mediums. So this gives us opportunity to do different things. Now in this video I have stuck to the same stencil for every technique, so this is me just sort of showing how you might want to colour in. So I'm just going to pick out a few of the berries and colour those in. But on this video, I have mostly just sort of done one technique per thing that I am showing you. To be honest, if I was crafting something and creating a background, I might layer some of these. So I might use some ink, some embossing powders, some paper piecing to create a nice, interesting background. Now this time we are kind of going to be colouring, but just directly through. So rather than creating the black outline first, I am just going to colour directly through this. I again have many types of colouring mediums. So look at what you have in your stash. Here I am using acrylic markers. These are just some cheap ones that I got from B&M Bargain. So here I'm using acrylic markers to build up. And I am also, look at that, look how bright and vibrant. I'm also just going to show you the same technique again with watercolour pens. But you could use your alcohol markers, you could use sparkle pens, gel pens, your pencils, whatever colouring medium that you like. I could have honestly done it. If I was to show every colouring medium, the video would have just been that. But that gives two different ideas of what you can do if you use your stencil to colour. Now again, similar to the inks, we have pens that do interesting things. So again, thinking of the different things that we have in our crafty stash that can be used through a stencil. So in this case, I have got a quickie glue pen. Now, to be honest, mine is quite a fine tip one. This technique probably would have been a little bit easier had I used a wider nibbed one, but it still worked. And I am going to use Gilding Flakes. So we're actually going to be doing some Gilding Flakes with our stencils. Mind blown. With a quickie glue pen, we've not illustrated it, but you could use glitter, you could use, you know, like the fluffy stuff that kind of gives a sort of fluffy texture. So again, anything that you would maybe use your quickie glue pen to create special effects, you can draw with that through your stencil and create different effects like that. But oh, I love Gilding Flakes. And these ones are particularly nice because they've got the gold and the copper tones together. But I have to say, up until making this video, it has never occurred to me to use Gilding Flakes. Look at that. It just looks so good. And although we got the gold effect with the embossing powder, it's just a completely different texture. So again, I'm playing with different pens that are available on the market. This one is a Molotow drawing gum pen. So the idea with drawing gum is you protect the paper. And then you go over it with watercolour. So you can see me doing that now. And I don't know if you can just see, but the watercolour is like pulling and resisting where that drawing gum has gone. So again, we're going to get a very different technique than we have seen before. So I did that and then I just popped it to the side and let it dry. You can just kind of lift it off with your finger, but I have used an adhesive remover to get that. You'll also see that the magically watercolour square has appeared next to it, but that is for a different technique where we can get a similar but slightly different result. So again, just look at what you have in your stash. When it comes to drawing through a stencil, yes, we can do the basics with the black pen like we saw, but do you have any speciality markers that do interesting things? Some people have markers that can be foiled on machines and things like that. So it's just taking time to think about what you could do with your stencils. Now, this is a technique I love. I did a live on it. So this is reverse stenciling. So I've put the colour down first, and then I have taken one of these magic erasers. So these are used for cleaning. They're great for cleaning up different stains and things. And you just damp the sponge a little bit and then start lifting the colour. And yes, I tried this technique just using a damp cloth or a biodegradable baby wipe, but it didn't lift the colour as well as one of these little sponges. These little sponges are amazing and they soak up so much colour. And again, we've got that reverse technique. Now I'm just showing you some things that I did in the live because I talked about layering techniques. So I managed to create real depth just by adding a few extra details to it. Now, I went to the museum with my daughter the other day and we were sat doing some wax rubbings, and I came home and thought I could do that with my stencils and my stamps. Again, not something that I have ever done before. So this time I've put the stencil on the back. I've just got some very cheap budget style crayons. To be honest, I probably should have taken the paper off them and used the length of the crayon. It would have looked a little bit less scratchy, but we are getting a really interesting effect doing a wax rubbing like this. And to be honest, most of us, if we've got kids or grandkids, have crayons lying about the house. If not, they are such a super budget thing to buy that yeah, it's a really interesting technique that we can do with our stencils there. I'm just showing you here because when I first started experimenting with this, that it's better if you do this on a thin paper. So when you get your mixed media papers, the rubbing doesn't show out quite as well, so it's better to do that with a thinner paper. I'm also now doing the colouring technique that we saw before, but this time I'm colouring it up with the wax crayons. Also, because your wax crayons will create a little bit of a resist with your watercolours, so it's another way of creating an interesting effect. So I'm just going over that with a little bit of watercolour, and you can see the sort of crayons sort of pop out from that. Now, because I've done it on thin paper to get the wax rub to look well, the watercolour doesn't work particularly well on that paper, but you could change your paper accordingly to the project that you are doing. Now, not all stencils will do this, but the JMC stencils are 350 micron mylar. So if you get a nice thick stencil, you can run them through your embossing machines and they will work a little bit like an embossing folder and give you a gorgeous embossed design. I remember when I first started crafting, you paid a fortune to get embossed paper. So you can just run it through there and you can see how amazing that looks. Now, just to show that you can layer techniques, this particular card has already gone through the emboss machine so that it has that raised emboss. Then I'm just going to add a little bit of colour with Distress ink while the stencil is still down. And because Distress ink has a little bit of an open time, I have managed to get some embossing powder down on there as well. And this time I've chosen a clear holographic sparkly one. So like I was saying before, you can layer a number of techniques together to get a really unique look. So if while watching this video there's some techniques that you would like to see explored further, then do let me know. We'll have a play, and also let me know what one you think you will give a try. So I've moved on to texture paste now. I've just gone with a basic white one here. So again, because these are nice thick stencils, you do get a really good profile on those. And similar to if I'd been using an ink, I do like to again wipe up. I'm just giving that a little bit of a spray with water and then using my rag to do the first clean. To be honest, when you use texture paste on your stencil, you do need to go and clean it properly too, but I love the look that you get from a mop up. Again, like the pens, like the ink pads, there are more texture pastes available than I can list, and we could make a whole video just going through the various texture pastes. So I'm just showing you a coloured one there. This is the Pretty Gets Gritty Mousse, and I'm also showing you a glitter one. But basically it's a similar idea. With whatever pastes you have, you can create that sort of gorgeous raised profile from it, and you also get like a really cool distressed look from your mop up as well. So this is the Craftbox UK souffles that I am using there. So again, it was just to give an idea of the different looks you can get using various different texture pastes. Sprays. I have lots of sprays and very rarely use them. But obviously you can use your sprays with your stencil as well. They create a fabulous look, as you can see just there. And then I am about to do my favourite thing, which was quite a surprise to me because sprays aren't really my thing. But this particular mop up, I think that is my favourite of the entire collection of things that I did. And finally, we are going to have a little look at the Gelli Plate. again, a Gelli Plate, you could have a whole video just on the Gelli Plate. You can layer your stencils up and create some really cool backgrounds. But because this is kind of looking at the focus being the stencils, and we're looking at different techniques with the stencils, I've not gone to town on this. I've just done a couple of sort of very basic pulls. But yeah, it was good fun having the Gelli Plate out. I definitely think that I will be getting that out again and having another play, mixing it with some stamps and different things. So I've just used some acrylic paint. Again, you can use all sorts of mediums on your Gelli Plate to get different looks. And just popped a thin layer of white on there just before we get the pull. Now I have to say, this first pull is not the best in the world. I find when I do Gelli plating, it's a little bit like when you make pancakes. The first one is never quite right. So I find this a little bit disappointing. I'm not going to lie. There wasn't much interest, although the little rusty bits that have come off look really cool. So we're just going to give that another go, just to give a sort of better idea of the type of results that you can get using your Gelli Plate. I've gone in a little bit heavier handed with the base colour and with this gorgeous blue that I have put. And I'm just using the roller. And the reason I like a big Gelli Plate like this is, again, I'm getting two prints out of it. I'm kind of getting the main print and the mop-up print all on one page, which is good fun. I stepped away for a little while, let that dry, because that is one of the best things you can do when it comes to using your Gelli Plate. Just give it a little bit of time to dry before you do your pull. I probably should have given it a little bit longer because I lost some of the detail in that bottom left corner, but it still worked out pretty good, so we are happy. So again, just putting that down, and we are going to just do our pull. So yeah, I still think there's probably more that we could do with our stencils, and now that I've become a little bit more aware, I'm sure in videos to come we will be exploring some of these techniques further. So again, please do tell me what you would like to see in more detail, and we will make sure that we make a video on it and that we can do it. Now, I do sell stencils, so if you are watching this video when it is originally launched, there will be a special code on my shop, Stencil20, for a 20% discount off any of the stencils. So it does mean that if something has captured your imagination watching this today, that you can have a little try and get a cheeky wee discount as well. And then again, this is the advantage of having done this video just using the one stencil, because now as we see all of these different effects side by side, we can see just what different looks and results we can get from using the one stencil but changing up the various techniques. So thank you ever so much for watching. Please do grab your stencils out and have a play, and I will see you guys very, very soon with some more crafty inspiration.